Hello, this is our third video on the DAT file. If you haven't seen the previous two, the first one explained how to find the file on your computer, while the second explained how to assign categories to the numbers that are found there, and gave a brief summary of what those categories mean. Today we're going to dig a little deeper into those numbers. For the purpose of illustration, I'll be using the old version of the game that I have on one of my older computers. For those that don't know, in the old version you could create your own horse, train them and run them through their career, and hopefully after seeing this will give you new insights into the current game. Some of the info that shows up in the file are pretty much self-explanatory, but I've had several questions sent in regarding what are the maximums and what does this mean or what does that mean. So I'm going to get into some of that here today. But I feel I have to remind you to remember that this is just it's just my theory, based on the old game, and then watching the new game develop over a couple years. It's just one man's opinion, and I've had the privilege of sharing theories with a lot of other players, and some have some very good theories, and some are not so great. And so you should kind of put this in with that group. It's just theory, but hopefully at the end of it, it will help improve your game some. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so here's my working theory, that the old game is the beginning of the evolution, and a lot of the DNA of the new game obviously comes from the old one. With that being the case, I built a horse, Secret Sauce, and I gave it a 137 target speed rating. Now in the new game, that would be considered the BSR, or birth speed rating. And I gave it a best maximum distance of 9. In the game, or I should say in the DAT file, it doesn't give you a best distance, but the performance reports give you a good gauge of what the best distance of your horse should fall in. And as you'll see in a minute, that can change based on the age of the horse. The brake speed was covered in video 2. The brake, the early top speed. I believe HRF gives a good summary of what those categories mean, so I'm not going to get too much into it here. Maybe in another video if there's a lot of questions about it. Long stamina. In the game, this is considered base speed. And clearly, and I'm going to show you here in a second, the long stamina or base speed plays an important part in identifying how far your horse can go. Here with Secret Sauce, that has a 137 target speed rating, or BSR, with the best distance of 9, you can see here 9 furlongs, 137, and it has a time there. But if I was to change this base speed to, let's say, a 67 and recalculate, okay, I'm not gonna save that, but clearly it shows that there's a change here, and it gives the number here, and the best distance I went from 9 to 8. To even show it even more, if I make that 66 and recalculate, bigger changes, and now the best distance is only 6. And really clearly it shows how it changes the whole speed rating. Now if I wanted to, I could use these speed adjustments and stamina adjustments to get this back up to 137. But clearly the horse wouldn't be able to go the 9 furlongs as indicated before. Let me just change this back so we're working kind of from the same numbers. But I just wanted to show you long stamina, base speed, the bigger the number, let me make this let me make it 69 so you can see that. You can see how that increases. Now I'm working at 9 furlong, 144.8 speed rating. So clearly, the higher this number, the better the horse, and the longer distance it tends to show that the horse will be able to go. Okay, let me just put that back there so we're working from the same numbers. Target speed 137 with the best distance of 9 furlongs. Also, acceleration. That's a category listed on your DAT. 1 through 4, with 4 being best. If I was to change this from excellent to good, it'll show that it reduces the performance of the horse some. So clearly, acceleration plays an important part in how good your horse goes, or how good your horse is. I gave secret sauce, and I'm going to be jumping around a little bit, but hopefully by the end of it I would have covered all the categories in the DAT file. I just think it'll be a little bit easier this way. The beginning peak age I gave is 3.8, the end age 5, and the age 3.3 peak percentage. In your DAT file, I believe that's what's called the Derby percentage. And this plays a very important part in the curve of your horse development, in my opinion. The lower the number, the longer it's going to take your horse to reach its peak performance. The longer it's going to take your horse to be as good or reach this 137. And I'm going to show you that here. At age 3.8, this is its peak. But if I was to change that to 3.3 and recalculate, it's not as good. At 9 furlongs, it's now hitting a 107 when before it was a 137. But you can see here that although it's not as strong at 9, its better performances are at shorter distances. So that's one of the things to consider, that as your horse is younger, you may want to race him shorter to reach higher or better performances. Let me just show you what would happen if this age 3.3% was, let's say, 95, which means the horse is maturing faster. So let's recalculate that. And although it's still not reaching its peak, it's a lot better than it was at 86. And so that tells me, it should tell you, that the higher this number is, the higher that horse is going to reach its peak. Okay, let's get this back down to 86 and get this back over to 3.8, so we're working from the same numbers again. I want to show you something else. 3.8. So what happens in the middle of my peak? In the performance report, it may say 3.8 plus 5 divided by 2. It would say that your horse's peak age is 4.4. So at 4.4, which is the center of your peak age and end age, if I recalculate all, there's no change. It's still in that peak form. But as your horse ages, let's say past its prime, a 5.5, and recalculate, your horse begins to lose a little bit of its performance. And I believe the more it ages, the more it decreases in performance, which makes total sense. So let me just get this back. I'm going to show you one more thing on this page. 3.8. Recalculate. Okay, now we're back. There was once some questions about, does it make a difference if your horse is male or female? Okay, I'm going to change it to male and recalculate. As you see, there's no change. Back to female and recalculate. There's no change. So it doesn't seem to make a difference whether your horse are male or female as far as it comes to racing your horse. I think that's all that I want to show you on this page. Let's go over to the base attributes. Now the base attributes is going to deal with your horse's ability to deal with different surfaces, your horse's running ability, and your horse's demeanor. The base attributes, and you'll notice synthetic isn't represented here. In the old game, this was actually before synthetics, and synthetic is the only surface that I believe that the performance report and the DAT file can be off. It could indicate that your horse doesn't like it when it actually does. And I'm not sure if this is the reason why, but that's the one that you may want to take a second look if you're looking at your performance report and your DAT file to try to figure out if your horse likes synthetics. You may just want to test it. I wouldn't follow either one of those reports. When it comes to hard, it's 1 through 4. I'm sorry, 1 through 5, with 5 being best. The same thing for soft dirt, which I believe is sand. 1 through 5, 5 being best. I'm going to come back to mud ability because that one's kind of tricky a little bit. But here you'll find the same thing with firm turf and soft turf, 1 through 5, 5 being best. Now with mud, we're dealing with actually 3 surfaces: heavy, good, and sloppy. Now with good and heavy, it's 1 through 5, with 5 being best, but instead of optimum, it lists superior. I'm not sure why the difference there, but it's still 1 through 5, with 5 being best. With sloppy, the numbers are inverted on the DAT, and so actually 2 would be best. 2 would be the lowest, but if you see a 2 in your DAT file, that means sloppy. I'm not sure. I don't know any other way to explain it but to say if you see a 2 under mud, put the horse on the slop. The horse would be better on the slop. If it's 5, then you want to look for heavy and good. Running style, if you want to know what these numbers mean, it's 1 through 7. 1 is far back, 7 is flexible stalker, so that means 2 would be on the lead. If you want me to write these down somewhere, I will, but that's what those mean. Rateability, the ability for your horse to rate, 1 through 4, 4 being best. Running on the lead. Running on the lead, I believe in your DAT is listed as loaf. The ability for your horse to run on the lead, 1 through 4, 4 being best. The ability for your horse to run on the lead. How do your horse handle traffic? That it always finds itself blocked in. Find it hard to get out of certain situations. 1 through 4, 4 being good. 4 being best. And handles traffic on your DAT file that's listed as mid-pack. And these are important because there's a few categories that you don't see that aren't here that's on your DAT, and that's stamina, drive, point, and kick. And I believe those are products of other traits. And so I guess what I'm saying that there's some mathematical formula that I'm guessing between your brake early and top speed, your base speed, your how your horse accelerates, the horse's running style, how it rates, makes up the drive, point, and kick. And so in the old game in building your horse, those aren't numbers that you put in, but more or less they're products of other traits, if that makes sense. Courage, 1 through 5, 5 being best. Soundness, that's 1 through 5, 5 being best. Curvability, 1 through 4, 4 being best, and that's the ability for your horse to take the curve. I'm not sure if you've noticed how some of your horses may not hug the rail; they seem to drift off from the rail a little bit. That's that curvability there. Durability, 10 through 50. The ability of your horse, how durable your horse is. Consistency, most of the horses I think I've seen are pretty much all 90% consistency. Here's your weight stress point for your horse. The closer your horse is to meeting his weight stress point in a race, the more the likelihood of your horse declining in peak performance. Training needs. This isn't on the DAT file either. Training needs and training discipline. The ability of your horse to, first of all, the ability of your horse, how much training your horse needs to run its peak performance. And then the discipline, the ability of your horse to follow the instructions to reach its peak conditioning in training to run its peak performance. I think that's just about it for the categories in the DAT. There's a couple things that I want to show you as far as training, but let me just make sure that I've covered everything that I wanted to cover here. If you have any questions or I missed some things, feel free to shoot me a private message or leave a comment, and as I get those, maybe I'll make a second video or just update this one a little bit. Now I want to get into training a little bit. This is the training portion of the old game. And the idea was to make sure in training that your horse was at optimum condition and speed and stamina. Now, obviously we don't see this in the new game, although it could be on the back end server on the game. I believe the running style, the rateability, running on the lead, durability, consistency, soundness, all play a very important part in what we consider clunkers. I think the durability and soundness play more of a bigger part in our horses, running clunkers than anything else. Because for the most part, I think our consistency is the same, but our ability for our horses to be durable and sound plays a big part in our horse running poor performances. In training your horse, there's a few questions on workouts, which is the fastest, which is the slowest, and clearly here, rest would be one. But as we get into gallop and breeze, you begin to see that breeze is like in the middle. Heavy work would be, more of a hard or handily gallop, if that makes a lot of sense. But I think that's it. I think I pretty much covered your brake speed, your early speed, top speed, base speed, stamina, drive point, and kick not so much, only because I believe those are products of some of the other traits. Um, I think I've showed gender really doesn't make a difference, year born or color. Um, I have the numbers if you want to figure out you know, what number matches what color. And so if that's of interest to you, let me know. But I think that's just about it. I hope this helps you improve your game. Feel free to ask any questions, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Good luck, guys.